G'day and welcome to Hooked on Sport, South Australia's local sports podcast. It's the 21st of November and time to check in with Ben Hook and hear what's caught his eye this week in local sport. G'day, Hookie.
Wallace, hello, and happy Test Match Eve for all those who celebrate.
Very exciting. Yes, the first Test match against India starts tomorrow in Perth. Going to be a very exciting series.
Well, it will be in particular for us South Australians, and I know we don't like to spend a lot of time on international elite level sport, Wallace, but 3 South Australians in the Test team, incredible. The last time that happened was 40 years ago in 1984 in the West Indies, when David Hooks, Wayne Phillips and Rodney Hogg all played together. So tomorrow we'll see Alex Carey, Travis Head and the newcomer Nathan McSweeney, who was going to open the batting for Australia. So what a real thrill for us South Australian cricket. The first time in 40 years we'll see 3 members of the South Australian cricket team all playing together. You've actually got to go back to 1967 for when 4 South Australians played together. So that was Ian Chappell, Barry Jarman, Neil Hawke and Eric Freeman. And the way South Australian cricket is performing at the moment, I wouldn't necessarily rule out a 4th player. We could see a Spencer Johnson or even a Lloyd Pope in Sri Lanka in the coming months. So, yeah, really good time for South Australian cricket.
Very exciting. Now, from tonight, we'll see some potential new Olympians in a brand new National League.
Yeah, that's right. So the inaugural Major League Sixes gets underway tonight. That's at Marden. So we're talking about the Olympic version of lacrosse, Wallace. So traditional lacrosse is 10 players a side. It's for 10 or 15-minute quarters. 15 or 20-minute quarters, depending on the rules of the day. But this is a very short, sharp format of the game. There's only 6 players on each side. And Lacrosse Australia has developed 5 franchises with a men's and a women's team each. So those teams are the Brisbane Salties, the Perth Manta Rays, the Melbourne Macos, and I'm not exactly sure what a Macos is. It's some sort of big fish, the Adelaide Redbellies and the Sydney Seahawks. So these are all franchises completely created out of the ether in 2024, specifically to start to work out who is going to be going to the Olympics, LA 2028, because this is lacrosse's return to the Olympics. So it was done completely on a draft system. There are no necessarily South Australians in the Adelaide Red Belly franchise. So the best women's player in South Australia arguably is Olivia Parker, and she'll be playing for the Sydney team, the Sydney Seahawks. So that's the way it's been rolled out this year. But it is in Adelaide, which is a bit of a hotbed of lacrosse across Australia. It's really Perth, Adelaide and Melbourne are the epicentre, if you like, and then the Northern States play as well, but certainly that's where all the strength comes from in those southern 3 states, if you like. Gets underway tonight. It's at Marden on the soccer stadium there, played on around about a pitch of 75 metres, so 100-metre soccer pitch is pretty much perfect for this. It's a great venue, Marden. We're going to have great weather over the next 3 days. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, we'll find a champion, but more importantly, we're going to start to work out who might be going to the Olympics in 2028, which for what is really a community sport here in South Australia is quite incredible to think that, someone like Olivia Parker and all of these youngsters, there's a Taylor Mangan who is a star, up-and-coming star in South Australia. It's going to be tremendous just to see how these youngsters develop and move into that elite, well-known headspace of Olympic athlete.
Great opportunity to see some terrific young players.
I'll be there and involved. I'll do some stadium announcing and some interviews for them over the course of the 3 nights. And I'm looking forward to watching how it all plays out, because this is going to be a sport that'll be front and centre in 4 years' time at Los Angeles.
Last Saturday night was a historic night for the North Adelaide Footy Club.
6 more inductees into their Hall of Fame, Wallace, and some true legends of South Australian sport as well, not necessarily as players. So Arthur Brown was the first inductee. He was the first captain of the team that played league football. So they'd played community football. They were known as Medindi in their very, very early days, and he played in the era when they were Medindi and was part of the team that changed its name to North Adelaide. He was part of the first team that played league football against Port. He actually captained that team and went on to become, a legend of the club, was their first ever life member. So Arthur Brown, who played in the sort of 1890s, Wallace, John Condon, who is just a champion administrator for both the SANFL for North Adelaide and also the Crows. And if anyone who's done anything in football in South Australia would know the name John Condon and the incredible contribution that he's made. Jimmy Allen, of course, from a more modern era, who won 3 Magarey medals and is a ripping bloke. And I think he's coaching in Victoria now. So I haven't caught up with Jimmy for a while. I used to see him at swimming. Our kids used to do swimming at the same time. So I'd bump into him at the swimming pool, and haven't seen him for a while, but he's just a ripper. Mick Noonan, who people of the era that I grew up in, the 70s and 80s, would know Mick Noonan very well. He was a star player as a rover for Sturt and Norwood. Played a little bit for North Adelaide when he went over as coach. Champion record as a coach, really saw North Adelaide through an esteemed period in the 80s and early 90s. Only won 2 flags in 87 and 91, but was part of grand finals in 85 and 86 that they lost to Glenelg. The 85 one was no surprise. That was when Glenelg was red hot, led by Stephen Kernahan. 86, Kernahan had gone to Carlton by this stage, and that was probably one that got away for North Adelaide. 87, they played Glenelg again and won very, very comfortably by in excess of 80 points. They won in 91, which was the bloodbath against West Adelaide. That was one of the most brutal grand finals anyone has ever seen. Probably as famously as anything, they lost the 89 grand final to Port Adelaide. They only kicked 1 goal for the entire match. 1 goal 8 was the entire score. So, yeah, that was certainly one of the most disappointing days for the North Adelaide Football Club. But Mick Noonan, also inducted alongside Darryl Hart, who played in that 91 grand final, won the Jack Oatey medal, kicked 7 goals that day. A small forward, very tough rover, incredibly skillful player, played for the Crows in 91, 92, but played in excess of 150 games and won a couple of best and fairest for North. And the last one is Rob Gerard. Didn't play a game of football for North, but a wonderful philanthropist, club patron, benefactor of the club. I mean, he's done so many incredible things, raising so much money, not just for North Adelaide, but for sport in South Australia. He's just a true legend, Rob, and so he was inducted into the Hall of Fame as well. 6 new members into their Hall of Fame. They're very good with their history, North, alongside Norwood. I think they do an excellent job of it. So, that was just tremendous to see 6 champions inducted.
Australia's most decorated Olympian was in town, and you spent some time with her this week.
Yeah, Emma McKeon came to Adelaide on Tuesday. She was invited here by the Australia Day Council of SA. She was named Young Australian of the Year at the start of the year, Wallace, in the day before Australia Day is when those announcements are officially made. So Emma McKeon, 14 Olympic medals across 3 Olympic Games, 2016, 2021, 2024. The most decorated Australian, the 3rd most decorated swimmer in history, and the 7th most decorated athlete of any sport, male or female, in Olympic Games history. So pretty special to be sitting alongside of her for 3/4 of an hour. She did 3 functions over the course of the day, spoke to some swimmers very early in the morning, post-training at a breakfast. I caught up with her at Adelaide High School, where we spoke to a group of students there, and she was just wonderful. And then followed that up by speaking at the close of the Sport SA annual general meeting, which was held at Parliament House. And we also gave a tribute to the outgoing president of Sport SA, Michael Wright, who has done 10 years in that job, and he was presented with life membership. Emma McKeon's message, she adapted it so beautifully, depending on whether she was talking to young athletes, young students, or CEOs. I thought she did an incredible job. And she really was quite revealing into the amount of doubts and negative thinking that she often battled with throughout her career. Hard to believe that someone who was so successful so regularly just had so many doubts. She told a wonderful story about how she would liken her doubts to... You knew they were there, that you could write them on a piece of paper, and you could choose to either put them right up in front of your face, or you could put them down on the desk in front of you so you could see other things as well. And that was how she dealt with them, by accepting they were there, but putting them down on the table in front of her so she could look out and around. I thought that was a wonderful little analogy. I'm sure those students in particular that I heard her speak to would have got a lot out of her. So what a great contribution she's making. She said up until the Olympics, she really didn't have a chance to do anything with her Young Australian of the Year award, but she's really trying to make up for lost time now and share her message with other youngest South Australians and Australians, which is amazing.
There's a well-known SA cricketer who's breathing new life into his career.
I'm so pleased about the way Jake Lehmann has responded to what was a pretty tumultuous 2023-2024 for him. He was captain of the team last year. He took over captaincy responsibilities from Travis Head, and it was a really disappointing year. South Australia finished bottom of the Shield. Jason Gillespie parted ways with the South Australian Cricket Association as the head coach, and Jake Lehmann lost the captaincy. He played every game last year, scored 428 runs at just an average of 21. So it really was an underwhelming year for him. And a guy who was rising 32, even though he was contracted this year, I thought, you know what? They might be done with him here. I wouldn't be surprised if they move on. He started in the second 11 team, scored a huge 173 against Western Australia. He was coming in at 3 for 25 in that game, put on 170, and that was the catalyst to squeeze him back into the Sheffield Shield team when the first game came around against New South Wales. South Australia struggled to a draw against New South Wales, had a really solid win against Queensland, and of course they had that disappointing performance last week against New South Wales after a really good win over Victoria. It was Jake Lehmann's second innings 100 in really difficult batting conditions that just suggest to me that he has really found his feet. So he's got 100 in Sheffield Shield, in second 11 and in club cricket now. And for a guy who's 32 and probably looked like he was washed up and maybe his career was done, he has just re-emerged as a real leader in South Australian cricket. And I'm just so pleased for him.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Now, Hookie, a massive win for a battling Adelaide sports franchise.
They've had a rough year, and the sport of hockey has had a rough year, Wallace. If I can just take you back to the middle of the year, the Kookaburras and the Hockeyroos both went through to the quarterfinals of the Olympics. The women had gone through as top of their pool and were playing fourth place China and lost at the quarterfinal stage. The men took on the Netherlands after finishing third in their pool and lost to the second placed Dutch, and so missed out as well. So to finish top of your pool and miss a medal, hugely disappointing. And of course, the Kookaburras, the men, were the reigning silver medalists. They went down to Belgium in a shootout, the previous Olympics at Tokyo in 2021. On top of that, they've been dumped from the Commonwealth Games. So we all know that the Commonwealth Games was going to be in regional Victoria. It's been moved now to Glasgow. Victoria are paying the freight for that. And one of the penalties we got is one of our biggest opportunities to win a gold medal we've been cut from. So really disappointing for hockey as a sport. And South Australia has done it tough in the National League. The women and the men were winless going into their last home round of the year, which was last Saturday night. The men and women were both playing the New South Wales Pride. Let's get the bad news out the way first. The women got absolutely blown away. They lost 8-0 after being 7-0 down at half time. So that was a really tough result for them. But the men, my goodness, they were the first game of the two on Saturday night. It was 1-1. With 90 seconds remaining, and New South Wales were pressing, and they had a big numerical advantage going forward on a bit of a fast break. Jeff Abbott has made maybe the greatest defensive play I've ever seen. It was a 2-on-1 as the ball was coming down from another New South Wales Pride player, and he picked which of the two players was going to receive the next pass and made this incredible mad dash to make the intercept. At that point, I thought, look, I reckon he'll just knock this out of bounds, allow all his defence to recover, and maybe try and get this to go to extra time, which is a one-on-one shootout. But instead, he trapped the ball, ran another 15, 20 metres, passed to a teammate. Because the field was so spread, Adelaide managed to get the ball into its own scoring circle, and Landon Morley made this goal with 30 seconds remaining. And the place just erupted, and the players were just so excited as well. But there's 30 seconds to go. And so New South Wales take the ball, and they force a penalty corner with 12 seconds left. And everyone is thinking the worst, because penalty corners, you generally score from, and then it's going to one-on-ones, and who knows what happens there. New South Wales, with 12 seconds to go, decide that they want to take the ball out of penalty corner play into general play, because if they score a goal in general play, you get an opportunity to double that goal with a one-on-one. So Adelaide had that opportunity with Landon Morley and missed, and now New South Wales were playing for that opportunity and they fluffed it. They made a mistake with the pass, and so Adelaide then held on for those final 12 seconds for a 2-1 win, which was, I was there on the night, but I don't really have much of an understanding of hockey at all. I was just doing some ground announcing for them, and I kid you not, I was pumping my fist, standing in the air. It was just such a thrill for these guys who'd had such a tough year in a sport that had a tough year. I got into the moment. It was tremendously exciting. So well done to the Adelaide Fire, their first win for the year. They've got one game to go this weekend against Brisbane.
There's a legend of community cricket who's hit a milestone.
Yeah, I'll just make a bit of a declaration. Our final two stories are people that I know, and the second one, of course, you know as well, Wallace. So love them both, and for completely different reasons. But we'll talk about Andrew Heitman first, who's a great mate of mine who plays his cricket at Prince Alfred Old Collegians. He'd be pushing 60, I reckon, Heido, but he played his 350th 2-day match equivalent for the club. So they have an interesting structure where if you play 1 dayers, it's only counted as half a game. So he has essentially played 700 games of cricket for the club, because a lot of the games that he has played have been 1-day matches. But yeah, you only get credited with half a game. So that's 700 days of cricket. Bowls little in-swingers. He must have played 25 years at the club. He's won the bowling trophy for the grade that he's played 15 times. Isn't that amazing? Imagine
amazing.
The trophy cabinet that he's got. He's the second player at the club to play in excess of 352-day equivalents. The other is Andrew Olsen, who played a lot of cricket with. So just want to give a little plug for my good mate, Hido.
And SA's top amateur golfer has turned pro and begins her new career today.
Yeah, he's playing in the New South Wales Open. We're talking about Caitlin Pearce. She's, for those who are regular listeners to Wallace and my chat, then you are very, very familiar with the name, I'm sure. Yeah, decided to turn pro this year. She was ranked 55th in the world amateur rankings, which is, that's genuinely very good when you consider there are huge advantages for those who play amateur college golf in the US. So the fact she got to 55th is pretty incredible. You sort of go to the bottom of the bigger pool, don't you? Because she's now ranked 730 in the world. She's had a highest ranking of 517. And when you consider that she hasn't really played a lot of professional golf, that's pretty incredible. So there's a shotgun start at 9 o'clock this morning. In fact, while I'm reading through my notes here, I might just try and see if I can find where she's at with a score. Very good player. Last year at the Australian Open professional tournament, she finished tied 7, and she'll be playing in the Australian Open again next week, which is at Victoria and Kingston Heath. So, yeah, our next professional golfing athlete, Caitlin Pearce, is now, heading to the professional ranks. And I'll see if I can find a score for you as I just pour through where we're at. Oh, she's 1 under through 6, so she's tied 7 at the moment. So she's off to a pretty good start.
Well done, Caitlin, and we wish her all the best. Hookie, great to chat.
Good on you, mate. We'll see you next week, and I'm sure we'll lock horns in the meantime.
We've run through the finishing tape on another episode of Hooked on Sport. If you've got a local sporting story to share, send us a message via our socials or by email, hookedonsportpodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast and let your mates know about us. Tell them to search Hooked on Sport to find Ben Hook and the team. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.